Brother Sheldon, thank you very much for coming to see me in such a cold morning here in Glasgow. Now, tell me about your journey to Islam. How did it start?
Oh, well, I'll have to go back a few years, back to about 2009. I grew up in an Orthodox Christian home.
That's quite rare, isn't it?
Yeah,
in the UK, Orthodox.
Well, it's not like the Orthodox that you're familiar with. Jehovah's Witness. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses are considered to be Orthodox?
They consider themselves to be Orthodox, yes.
So this is what your parents were like?
Yes. In terms of not the same as, again, it's not the same as the Orthodoxy that you're familiar with, but in terms of following the religion.
Strict.
Strict, yes.
No blood transfusion.
No blood transfusions.
I remember my first exposure to Jehovah's Witnesses when I was a student doing my A-levels in Cornwall. And on a trip from Cornwall to London, sat in front of me a lady who tried to convert me throughout the way. Okay, well, so that was your upbringing.
My upbringing. So I already had the belief of monoism, the belief that there is one God, the belief that Jesus is not God. Because this is instilled in all Jehovah's Witnesses.
What do they think of him? A prophet?
No, they don't see him as a prophet. They use this term, Son of God. Okay, but not God. Because they said when he was on earth, he always used to point back to God and say, my Father is greater than I. So that obviously puts emphasis not on him, but on the Father, which is God. So
still hasn't resolved the issue.
So I fell out of the religion because, as I say, they are very strict in terms of the rules. I did break the rules, which I did admit, but the way that they have, they've got a setup whereby if you break rules, then they have to have like a trial.
Really?
Yeah.
Where, in the church?
In the church. So you would have the elders, which are like the ministers of the actual church. They would choose 3 of them to almost like a jury. And then they would then make a decision whether or not you are truly repentant for your mistake, and that then they would then decide the punishment based upon that and the outcome to that. And they saw that they felt that I was not sorry because I didn't volunteer the information. It was found out.
Or someone told on you.
Someone told on me, yeah. So that's what happened. But, alhamdulillah, because that event happened, I met a Muslim around about that time period. And we discussed, obviously, religion. So I said to the person, if you study Jehovah's Witness, I will then study Islam. After a few months, the person came to me and they said, well, look, they still see Islam as being the true religion. So why haven't you studied Islam? And I put up my hands and I said, you're right.
So you promised to study Islam, but you didn't.
I didn't, yeah. But from that moment onwards, I started making steps, and I started by going first to the masjid to find out. But my intention at the beginning wasn't to convert.
At least partly your intention was to prove Islam to be wrong.
That is correct, yes. I felt that given my background, studying Christianity, studying the Bible for as long as I did. I mean, at that point, I'd already had about 16 years of studying. So I thought I had the knowledge to obviously put a strong argument why Islam was not the true religion.
How old were you when you embarked on this?
Well, that was 2009, so I would have been about 32 at that stage, yeah. I remember one of the first sort of questions that I had was, you see, obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically knows, how, if we will accept Islam or we won't accept Islam. It's all been written from the day you're born.
True.
And then what's written is the day you die. So one of the questions I had was, because of that, do you think that does not take away from the freedom of choice?
Very good question. True.
So it was, I thought that was one of the big things that no one would be able to.
And how did you resolve this?
Well, again, that there were certain things that are written, but as it was explained to me, is that, that there's only certain things that Allah knows for certain, 100%. So He knows the day you're born, the day you're dying, your risky.
Risk,
yeah. And so these are all things that He knows without a doubt. In between that, we do influence those things that are written, and they can change based upon decisions that we personally make going forward through our lifetime.
Well, I remember as a young boy, I had a similar question. And my teacher said to me that there's something we humans can never really appreciate, and that is the attribute of knowing the unknown, because it's not within us. We simply cannot feel it. And this is one of the attributes of Allah. He knows the unknown. He knows the future. And that does not contradict with our will.
No.
Because His knowledge of the unknown is based on the choice we make.
Yeah, 100%.
But what actually made it for you? What was the crucial point?
Well, as I say, the crucial point, besides for answering the questions that I had, addressing each concern that I had, as I say, that was one of the main things. Obviously, one of the other crucial points was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So obviously, with my faith, we don't even recognize the Prophet at all. So it was obviously that was one of the crucial things to accept, and obviously all the things that he was able to accomplish.
You studied his life?
Yeah, I did. I did study his life at the time. Yeah. And once I accepted the Prophet, because the way I explained it to people, I was already 50% Muslim.
True.
Because I accepted
the oneness of God.
So it was just accepting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then once I opened up to that point, then the next step was to take Shahada.
And of course, once you enter into Islam, you realize that it was really the same tradition from the very early time when God sent messengers to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's all the same tradition, continuity.
Well, everything is exactly the sort of same in terms of the belief. You've got slight differences, of how you pray, how you clean yourself, but the fundamentals are the same. You are believing in one God. You're serving one God. You're doing things for humanity. these are truths that are
True.
Are the same with all the Abrahamic faiths.
Now, once you've decided to take that step, did you have family at the time?
If you're asking, did I my family and how they felt about that sort of steps? Unfortunately, I got a lot of opposition for my decision at the time. As I say, my family being Jehovah's Witness, they're very strict with their belief, and they felt that I was going through on the wrong path, and they tried to do everything to keep me from continuing my path with Islam, and they tried to pull me back to my previous faith. So it still is really difficult, you know. I've got a sister that doesn't talk to me even now.
How unfortunate.
Yeah, my grandfather also stopped talking to me, and unfortunately he's passed away. So I can't talk to him.
So that was really challenging, wasn't it?
It was. I can tell you a story about after I took my Shahada. It was during Ramadan, and I'd never fasted before. It was the first time that I was able to fast, and I was able to fast every single day during Ramadan. While that was happening, I was having problems at my work. They were trying to fire me at that point, and my father was putting a lot of pressure on me to go back to the Jehovah's Witness church. So I had all these influences, and I just got married at that point. And my wife at the time was expecting our first, our only child. So I was at the point of breaking. During the most hardest time, I turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I prayed. And I said, I'm having all these problems. Can you help me sort them out? My father had an aneurysm in his brain. And then he developed like an Alzheimer's after that. So he wasn't able to remember that I'd actually taken Islam. So every time I spoke to him about anything, it would be like a fresh conversation, and he would totally forget 5 minutes earlier what I had said. So that pressure that I had to go back to my old faith disappeared.
That was one relief.
One relief. My work, that they were close. If I told you how close that they were able to sack me at that point, they made it so that if you made 3 little mistakes, they could fire you, they could discipline you, which could lead to sacking. I had a written disciplinary on my name. I made 4 mistakes. So imagine you have a written disciplinary and you have made 4 mistakes, not 3, 4. So you think, well,
that's it.
And subhanAllah, you know, I sat down with them and they said, right, we know you've made these mistakes. So what my union rep asked them is, where's the written documentation for that? They could only bring up half of it, not the full 4. So they then made the decision, because they could only prove half of it, not the full 4, that they weren't going to take the matter any further.
That's another relief.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah. And and my wife and I at the time, we did work through the issues that we had raising a family, and we got through that as well. So all those issues that I was going through at that moment was not longer like a major issue in my life after that. And that was just because I put my trust in Allah to solve these problems and help me keep me on the path that I had chosen.
What about the Muslim community around you? Any assistance, or were you part of did you become part of a Muslim community?
Yes, there was a New to Islam group. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's actually still running here anymore, because the last I checked, the brother that was running it, he's now moved down to England. It used to be here in this masjid. They used to meet here, but I've not heard anything in a long time with that group. But basically, every week I would meet these brothers to try to get encouragement from the new Muslim community.
Now, becoming a Muslim, you're leaving some life behind, starting a new life. What about previous friends and acquaintances?
Well, it's strange, because you're giving up. When you give up alcohol, because I gave up alcohol, I gave up pork, and I pretty much did it overnight. Once I accepted Islam, I just said, no, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not eating pork anymore. As of right now, I'm only going to stick to the halal and not the haram. And I still keep in touch with the previous friends. But the thing is, because I don't have the alcohol, I don't spend time with them at all. Because for them, alcohol is like a social thing, where if you meet them, they will want to meet you in the pub, because that's where they feel comfortable. That's where they want to have a few drinks. And if you're not drinking, you're not getting drunk. And so the whole atmosphere is not the same. So if you want to keep following the halal and not the haram, you tend not to associate with the same friends. I mean, as I say, I still keep in touch with them, but I don't have that sort of closeness that we had before I accepted Islam. But at least that they weren't against my decision. I mean, they did say at the time, look, be careful, you might become Muslim if you go to the mosque.
Of course, if you go to the mosque. Well, it's what usually doesn't help here is the misconception about Islam and Muslims, which people don't usually necessarily talk freely about. But when something like this happens, it comes to the fore, doesn't it? Muslims association with all sorts of frightening things, as the media keeps reminding people.
Well, yes. I mean, I found that it's the media that paint a picture to what it means to be Muslim and what it means to be Palestinian. And because that they're constantly bombarding people with the wrong impression, when you say like, well, I'm thinking of it studying Islam, or I want to stand up for the Palestinians, and they've got this other wrong idea of what it means, because the idea, the picture that has been painted in their mind is wrong.
We took this as at the time we were recording this at the time when the World Football Cup is about to end in Doha. This issue became so heated up, where Palestine and Islam again come to the fore as a result of all the discussions and arguments about what is permissible and what is not, and how things go. So it seems that this is going to remain with us. Well,
one thing about the cup, which I really enjoyed watching, you see the way the Qataris present Islam from the opening ceremony, and even after the opening ceremony, the Westerners, the impression that they got when they were there, the hospitality that they faced, because all of that is part of the religion, So you have to be hospitable to your neighbors, even if they may not like you. So I think the example that was shown was brilliant. It goes against the narrative of that Islam is a terrorist religion. The media tried really hard to try to paint it. Here, they did not have the opening ceremony.
Yes, they didn't relay it. They didn't show it.
No. And the narrative of obviously one's identity and personal preference, should we say, they try to then point fingers at the religion, at the people, even the FIFA, and say, oh, why did you allow this event to happen here? But even through all of that, as I say, the example that's shown, it broke down so many people's misconceptions of what it means to be Muslim, being in the country, and even the Palestinian issue was brought to the forefront.
Indeed.
It was sung in every match, I believe. They were saying obviously free Palestine, and the flags were being flown everywhere where you wouldn't see it in any other event, which was amazing. But it also taught us, I think it taught the Westerners specifically, look, you have to show respect for your mother. Whereas look at the Moroccan team, the way that they reacted to their parents. And I think the West now have lost that. They would rather see their family, their parents in homes, rather than look after their parents. You know?
Well, Brother Sheldon, it's been really a great pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.